one is for me.
Well, in the past, we've discussed classic television, classic movies, classic music has been, a major push in the industry these days. Broadcast television, what's popular right now in broadcast television? Channels like Decades, Heroes and Icons, and a couple other networks, and including METV. METV being one of the biggest. And METV is continuing to expand its lineup month to month. We're seeing changes on the Svengoolie. Svengoolie is getting another half hour, so it's basically to be able to put longer films, which certain films, couldn't be played on Svengoolie because of the length. They would have to cut it down, chop it up, and it would be just, for the length of the movie, wouldn't be worth putting on Svengoolie. But now we're able to do it. But there's been a lot of other programming that has been coming forward. I mean, we just got the A-Team last year, which is great, that we get the A-Team. We also had the Ed Sullivan Show added on to there, and many other things that have been coming up. And then we had more independent stuff like Sventooni. Sventooni has been doing very well. A lot of people said, I don't like it. Actually, it happens to be pretty good for what it is. And they're looking to add and expand another show to the lineup. I think it's like the not Son of Svengoolie, some other show part of the Svengoolie family lineup. But there's one particular show, one of the number one rated shows, which was out 52 years ago. Some people call it controversial. Others say it's called one of the most brilliant sitcoms of all time, is joining the METV family. But before we start, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share. Thank you for those of you tuning in. We are on the march to hit 700 by the end of February. That's our goal right now. Our main goal is to hit 1,000 on there, but we want to get to 700 by the end of February. And that's on our YouTube channel. And we're about 10 away from 200 on BitChute. And we're still growing on Odyssey and Rumble. So, METV. One thing about great Sunday nights, and we can go back 50 years 50 years ago on television. Sunday nights used to be a great night for television, including at CBS, when CBS used to make great programming back in the day. Wasn't this woke crap that it is today. And one of the great shows out there is joining the METV family. In fact, on Sunday nights, which is a great place to put it, because that was its original home, and it would be a great tribute to this, to bring back one of the great Norman Lear comedies of all time, and that is basically All in the Family, the original All in the Family, with the great Carol O'Connor, Gene Stapleton, Sally Struthers, Rob Reiner, and many others who have been on the cast, and some that have moved on to their own shows. That this spin-off All in the Family gave a spin-off to another great iconic show, Sherman Hemsley in The Jeffersons, which was also a fantastic comedy. I'll read a little bit into this from TV Line. METV invites you to hang out with Archie Bunker, wife Edith, a la Sunday nights when the classic sitcom All in the Family joins the network lineup this winter. TV Line has learned exclusively that the Norman Lear created All in the Family will make his debut on METV Classic Television Network on Sunday, February 5th, where it will air 4 back-to-back episodes each week, starring with the pilot, Meet the Bunkers. All in the Family represents a milestone in television comedy. Neil Savin, vice chairman of the Weagle Broadcast, said in a statement, While it was produced decades ago, a series of themes and messages resonate today as Norman Lear's take on our society continues to make it not only laugh, but also reflect. That is true. A lot of people call All in the Family a very racist program because of the characters on there of Archie Bunker. But not realizing it, you have to put it to the perspective that a show like this is similar to like Blazing Saddles. It mocked what Archie was because you had people who had thoughts like this many years ago, as the character that he portrayed as a aging man who basically saw a lot of things in his life and had his own perspective in life. You know, it was not that he was a racist. He just grew up in a different time period, and he was at an edge point where things were changing. And you know, you had Rob Reiner playing Michael, you know, who had his thought, and you know the arguments that they had between themselves, you know, the thoughts of government. You know, they did, you know, the things that they did. Let me put it in this perspective. The show itself highlighted things that in normal society that we dealt with. We dealt with racism. We dealt with politics. We dealt with basically crime. You know, I mean, there's an episode where Edith is sexually attacked. I think most people don't realize it. And they also dealt with child abandonment. They dealt with divorce. They dealt with basically illness and sadly death. If you're familiar with basically toward the end of the All in the Family series, which it became the Archie Bunker's place when Gene Stapleton left the show, which basically they had her character Edith die in the series, a tragic, and you know, anytime if you've never seen it, you know, you will cry knowing that, you know, the thing that, you know, kept Archie going for many years is you have to think Edith, as crazy as Edith Bunker was, you know, that was his love of his life, the thing that he cherished a lot, beyond, you know, with his children and grandchildren, is that, you know, Edith was the hold on him, and you know, it's something that he admitted after her death. You know, he always was the strong one, but it was Edith that kept was the strength also behind that. And you have to understand that it was like they loved each other and cared, you know, no matter what they'd gone through, and all the things that, you know, and between, and you know, Sherman Hemsley and Archie, you know, George Jefferson and Archie Bunker having the back and forth that they did in the series itself. I mean, that was very good as well, because you saw this situation, and then you had the guest starrings, all that. You know, you had Sammy Davis Jr. come on the show. I mean, you have to remember, this was the number one show in its time slot for many years. And basically, it ran 5 consecutive years. I mean, it was number one for 5 consecutive years, 1971 to 1976. And it was, you know, available to a lot of people to watch a show of this nature. And this was not the only show. Like you say, same thing with the Jeffersons, Chico and the Man, and many other sitcoms of the era. And people said, well, you can't make All in the Family today. Even though the ABC tried, that is not All in the Family. If you understand what All in the Family was back then, was the nuclear family. And the things that you went through in that time period. Things were not easy growing up in that time period. You know, I was born in the 60s on there. There were a lot of changes going on. And some people had to change their thinking towards certain aspects, because they grew up around things that basically weren't the same as it was as you get into the 60s and the 70s on there. Things were changing. And sometimes you didn't understand what was going on. And you had to question the situations, and sometimes you were angered to the situations on there. But you had a levity to the situation when you watch something of All in the Family. You know, we were going through Vietnam. You know, we came out of Korea into Vietnam, and then, you know, of course, you're getting into the into the 70s. You know, you had the gas crunch. You had many things that were going on in that time period. So in the scheduling that you'll see, because there'll be many changes to the Sunday lineup, from the slate, what February 5th will look like is you will get a double dose of The Andy Griffin Show, which is another great, iconic TV show. And of course, I mean, here METV is giving you the best of the best on Sunday night now. Andy Griffin at 6 and 6:30. 7 and 7:30, one of the most iconic TV shows of all time, MASH, another great show, high ratings on there as well. Then, of course, from 8 to 9:30, you're going to get All in the Family. At 10 p.m., we're going to get the Ed Sullivan. I guess they've cut it down a little bit to the Rock and Roll Classics. Then at 10:30, we're going to get another great comedy show, The Carol Burnett Show, which also going to be seen weekdays. I don't know if they're going to change the weekday one on there. And then topping off the evening at 11:30, a double dose of another great sitcom family, The Dick Van Dyke Show. This is what people want, and this is what people need to see. You know, there are people out there that don't want shows like this to be shown. They're going to tell you it's racist, that it's, that basically the time period was a bad time period and stuff like that. But when you look at the perspective of what they were talking about, is things that needed to be talked about. And this is what's important. Shows like this need to be shown constantly because it has an education value to it. It has an important value to it. And this is the family. You know, you see Andy Griffin, family. All in the Family, family. Dick Van Dyke Show, family. You know, you have MASH showing you the horrors of war through a little bit of comedy in between during the Korean War. You know, Ed Sullivan used to be a staple front on Sunday nights, showcasing entertainment in that time period. This is stuff people tuned in weekly to watch when TV was a major staple. Not like it is today with the type of programming they tried to push. That they tried to tell you, this is what you got to watch. You know, we don't want this type of programming anymore. And that's wrong. That's wrong. Classics are the classics for a reason. They're called classics for a reason. The period was different, but that's our history. That's important to watch. And a lot of the staples that they talked about in these shows are still relevant today. You know, you had great acting from Carol O'Connor. Carol O'Connor, one of the greatest actors out there. I mean, he had two big shows in his life. You know, he had All in the Family at Archie Bunker's place, and then he went on to do that the iconic TV made from the movie In the Heat of the Night with Harold Rollins, which was also a high-rated show at the time, which was also called racist on there In the Heat of the Night, but it was a great film about a cop from city cop coming down to a country that would not take any shit of the racism that was going on in the Deep South to investigate what was going on. I mean, Sidney Poitier did a great role on there, and it was the Rog Steiger played the police chief, but when the TV series came around, you know, you switched roles and you replaced it with Harold Rollins and Carol O'Connor. And of course, Gene Stapleton went on to do a lot of other things in life, other roles. Same thing with Sally Struthers, Rob Reiner, Sherman Hemsley, Isabel Stanford. I mean, there are great shows out there from the sitcom days. And I said, I mentioned Chico and the Man. Then there's Maude, which also had a great spin-off for the TV series Good Times as well. Norman Lear created some great programming back in the day. This should be watched. Check it out. February 5th. Sit down, get a little bit of the family in with All in the Family. So tell me in the comments below your thoughts, what you think of the whole situation. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in, and bye-bye now.